So if I said that there are a series of infinite numbers between 0 and 1, some people would look at me like I'm crazy. I mean, it is crazy, right? How can an infinite series, which by definition is never ending, fit in between a space, which is ending, or a finite series? To figure this out, we first need to ask ourselves, what is the first number between 0 and 1? But some people would say it's 0.1. Others would say it's 0.01. But all we must do is add another 0 before the 1, and this can go on forever. Thus, being the first number would be 1 times 10 to the negative infinity. So hello and welcome to my talk. It is now 3:56 on May 7th of 2019. You'll figure out why that's important later, hopefully. Today I'll be talking about temporal paradoxes, more commonly known as time travel paradoxes. But first, we need to define what a paradox is. Okay. The dictionary defines a paradox as a seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statement or proposition that, when investigated or explained, may be proved to be well-founded or true. With the definition of a paradox, we can see that the beginning statement of an infinite series of numbers in a finite space can be an absurd statement. However, it can be explained, or when explained, it is correct. Now, with the definition of a paradox out of the way, let's talk about time travel. So, time travel does exist. We do it all the time. Just by existing, you're moving from one second to the next. However, one interesting form of time travel is when we can change the rate at which we move through time. We can travel into the future by moving closer to an object with a strong gravitational field. This is called gravitational time dilation. This is when an object moves closer to a gravitational field and time moves slower relative to the observer. One example of this can be seen in the movie Interstellar, which I think I have right there. That's a black hole. Where a group of people stay on a planet near a black hole. Time moves normally to them, but for people who are not on the planet, are moving faster than they are. And so in the movie, the people on the planet are actually talking to people who aren't on the planet, and they can see that after like an hour of their time, it's been like a week for the person who's not on the planet. So now that we've talked about moving forwards, that's informal, but yeah. Now that we've talked about moving forwards, let's talk about moving backwards. In other words, interacting with one's history. Some movies have toyed with time travel, such as can be seen in like Groundhog Day, Harry Potter, and Back to the Future. However, not many of them deal with the paradoxes affecting or that come with time travel. And there are two main types of time travel. So first, there's the consistency paradox, which is, I couldn't find the actual name for the type of time travel, but this is what it goes by. And this is when your mind moves backwards, but your body does not. And so some examples of this would be like Groundhog's Day or Edge of Tomorrow. In the movies, all characters involved can essentially hit a reset button when some event is triggered, and they can go back in time to whenever the event started. This is one way to circumnavigate most of the paradoxes associated with time travel. And the way the movies get past this is because they don't see what happens after. So there might be paradoxes associated with this, but it's hard to figure out what paradoxes are because it's usually a short time period that's affected. And so the stuff like the butterfly effect isn't as pronounced at that time. And then whenever one of the characters makes a different decision than one previously made, they essentially travel to what can essentially be thought as of a new timeline. Ooh, words. So, the next type of time travel is causal loops. This is the normal type or mainstream type of time travel. This is where one physically travels through time, as also with mentally. This is where the butterfly effect has been shown in many movies. The butterfly effect is where one small change in the past can ripple into major changes in the future or present, depending on where you are in time. So this is shown in, there's a Doctor Who episode called The Waters of Mars, and where the Doctor travels back in time to a Martian colony, well, back in time to where he was, but he travels to this Martian colony that was supposed to be that had a devastating accident, and all the people associated with the colony died. However, he saves 2 of the people, and he changes history by stunting human space expansion, because the one of the people's family became a space explorer because of this, because of the death. However, all these time travel paradoxes are based on what type of time travel you subscribe to. So there is one where time travel is linear, and any changes in the past will directly affect the future. This is commonly seen in Back to the Future, where they go back in time and they affect some event, and then in the future it's drastically different. There's also a multiverse theory, and in this theory it states that there are many timelines, and going back in time and messing with one will just create another that is different, or you can jump to different ones, which is also another type of time travel. There also is a theory that states that time cannot be changed, and that any type of time travel proves that nobody has free will, because the events in the past have already happened and will continue to happen, and there's no way anybody can change that. And then so now some actual time travel paradoxes. So the first is the grandfather paradox, and this is the most well-known paradox, and it is relatively simple to understand. This paradox states that you cannot go back in time and kill your grandfather before one of your parents was born. This is because if your grandfather is killed before he had one of your parents, then one of your parents will not be alive to create you, and thus preventing you from going back in time and killing your grandfather. And this creates a loop which just goes back and just keeps going, so you'll be in this state of living and non-living. One very similar paradox is the retro-suicide paradox. And this paradox states that you cannot go back in time and accidentally or purposefully kill yourself. Because if you go back in time and kill yourself, you wouldn't be able to go back in time and kill yourself. Which, it's a pretty interesting thought. Another paradox is the knowledge paradox, otherwise known as the bootstrap paradox. This is more of a thought experiment, but it still has a paradoxical nature. See, in this paradox, a little kid finds a book on how to build a time travel machine. Later, when the kid grows up, he creates that machine. And then, as one of his acts, he goes back in time and leaves the book on how to create the time travel machine where his past self could find it. And because of that, the loop is completed. However, a question often asked with this paradox is where the first book came from. Because if you say the first book was with the first person who found it, because there was a loop, the first person who found it was also the first person to put it there. So the book essentially came from nowhere, depending on, once again, what time travel you subscribe to. Another paradox is the predestination paradox. This is when somebody goes back in time to change an event in the past that caused whatever happened in the future. Most people will try and go back in time and kill Hitler. However, this event will prevent Hitler from rising to power and thus learning about Hitler. And so you would not be able to go back in time and kill Hitler because he would not have rose to power and actually done anything. However, all these time travel paradoxes revolve around time loops, and because of this, they can become nice brain teasers. But as with technology for today, that's not racist, but that's all they are for now. Because time travel is fun to think about, people will always ponder this. However, as of right now, time travel going backwards is not currently available. However, if anybody does become a time traveler, meet 5 minutes before this presentation started, and you will know that because of the timestamp that I had earlier. Thank you. I think I had some. Yeah, I had extra slides that were supposed to go with the paradoxes, but.
Okay.
Questions.
Yeah. So how is mind not body possible? Like, how is it possible for your mind to time travel without your body to accompany?
So, I don't think it's ever explored in Groundhog Day, but in Edge of Tomorrow, there was some alien space goo that got inside of this dude, and every time he dies, the alien essentially resets the day, but it has its past knowledge or future knowledge, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Comment on that. One of the things is that you have to go back into your own consciousness. My question, okay, relating to time loops. So in the Miss Peregrine series, the Inbrons are the ones that create time loops over and over, and then the longer they've gone on, the more rapidly people in the time loop die. Any comments?
I don't exactly know what series you're talking about, but, I mean, I guess it'd be relative to whoever's watching it, because after, if you do something repetitively for such a long time, it just seems like it's being shorter. Like if you're a construction worker and you build the same thing over and over again, it eventually just becomes like you're going through the motions and you're not exactly paying attention. So that might be why they died faster.
Part of that was that their bodies literally decayed faster because of the extended time that they've been in the time loop, even though realistically when they entered in the first book, when they exited, they would still be alive.
Okay.
I'll lend you the books.
Yeah. Any else?
Is body not mind possible?
I haven't seen anything on that, but I would assume so. I mean, because if it is, if body not mind's possible, we all could be doing that. Like, you could just be getting reset every time something bad happens, and it could be possible.
Also, so the knowledge and grandfather paradox and retro suicide paradoxes aren't they in a sense all explained by the new timeline being created?
They could be, but the thing is,
it's not like a end all be all.
Yeah.
Thing, right?
Well, because certain research papers that actually explore these ideas, they've said that time can't be changed or that it can be changed, and depending on which one you follow, they could be fixed. I like the one where they can't be changed because it makes the question a lot bigger of where something came from or how did it happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, there could also be other time loops, so like a time loop and a time loop. And so like somebody puts the book there and then they pick it up and then that's a loop, but then it's ultimately there because somebody else put it there and somebody else started a loop.
Yeah, so like once they pick it up, after you put it there from traveling,
they put it back at that instant.
They go back and they time travel again, put it there.
Yeah.
Cool.
And so you can just get these more and more complicated loops. So
That's
yeah.
crazy. I think so have you ever considered, the question of whether time travel is possible or not from the perspective that we don't have a bunch of time travelers running around right now just like killing people?
Well, that could be because the one part of time travel where the past can't be changed, and so you go back in time, you cause the events that you're trying to change, or you cause the events that are going to happen, and so the time travelers just become history already.
Okay.
So maybe we've already seen them.
Yeah, but we just don't know.
Yeah,
Because
I mean,
there's no way for us to know.
or it could be like Primer was on there, where they go back in time, but you can only go as far back in time as when the time machine was created. And so there could be a time machine in the future that'll be created, and we can go back in time and do that, and mess around, but it'll only be when that first time machine was created.
Yeah, and what if the stuff we did in the past causes us to not be able to build the time machine in the future? Then we couldn't have ever.
Yeah. But there have been there was some experiment, I can't remember where, but they actually sent a photon back like barely any time before it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was measurable though, which is the thing. But with a photon, it is massless, so you can have quite a bit of energy in that. Anybody else?
All right.
Cool.